Welcome everybody to another GameDev Roundtable. Will be our final recording for 2023. It's been a very hard time these last few months trying to get things scheduled, but we finally got all the time zones and whatever's in alignment. For our topic for this episode, we're going to be talking about kind of end of the year wrap up, VGAs, how bad / whatever it was for the game industry of this year. But as always, I'll give everyone a chance to go around and introduce themselves. So we'll go with Seth and then go down to Tomo.
Hey, I'm Seth Goldberg. I run the Strategy Informer. I'm a game developer and game critic of a number of years, been around for a while. Currently kicking it with a project called Burden of Command that's got my interest. And that's about what's going on. Merry Christmas, everybody.
And I'm Tomo Moriwaki. I am a game designer, I guess, for a long time now. I guess I heard somewhere between 25 and 27 years. Somehow I always mess up the math. I run a small studio called Hyperkinetic Studios, and we have a small game about storytelling on Steam Early Access. It's been there a long time, called Epic Tavern. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. It's been an interesting year for video games.
Yep. Happy holidays to everyone here and to everyone watching this live, watching this recorded or at some point in the future. But yeah, it's been a very interesting year. For those of you who missed the previous update, Josh R. is still unfortunately not doing well and hoping that things recover for him, but as soon as he gets back, we will have him back on for the discussions. So, we only have about like an hour, so we definitely have a lot to fill in. So, 2023 has been a year for, a lot of... I guess, here's the first question. People have been debating, has 2023 been a good year for the game industry? Been a bad year for the game industry? I'm leaning more towards kind of a bad year, and I have some thoughts on that, but I'm going to let you guys kind of start things off. So, whoever wants to start first, feel free. Has 2023 been ultimately good or bad when it comes to game dev?
It's hard for me to use either of those words. Obviously, there have been some really good things, some really interesting games. Sort of a kind of I feel like the ground has shifted a little in terms of some of the biggest games out there. I feel like BG3 sort of changed people's perspective on what the biggest game of the year could be, and I think that's a good thing. I think some really interesting, the continued progress of storytelling in our interactive medium is proceeding nicely. And at the same time, it's not so good that I don't think we've ever seen a year where more people were laid off from the games industry. Maybe that's a side effect that there's more people in the game industry to some extent, but there was a lot of casualties this year. I think things are shifting, and we're sort of somehow getting back to normal, in quotes, whatever that actually means. So all in all, a good thing, I guess. But it's been, the bad things made it a tough year.
As with everything else, it's not black and white. You can't really say that it's been a good or a bad year. There's a lot of grays involved. Even when we were going through the COVID lockdowns, there were some great things that were happening in the industry. And the model itself was able to shift a bit towards more people not working in the office. And now we've seen some years of that, and unfortunately we've seen some problems with the industry as a whole, with the amount of layoffs. The amount of layoffs is dramatically high compared to the amount of money that's coming in my opinion. And we're seeing it fall down, and, the questions were raised, is this the real indie apocalypse? And I think that indie apocalypse question comes in every year. So people are, welcome to humanity, where we think that everything is going to fall apart at any given moment. And we're probably right, though. But I'm concerned at some of the things that I'm seeing. When studios that are not AAA studios like Versus Evil just disappear overnight. That's a hard thing to swallow. 13 people laid off day zero before Christmas. On a company that's traditionally done very well. There's no reason they should have had money problems as a whole for Versus Evil. Now there may be other structural problems and problems in how that
they got bought
was,
just before that, though, right? And so that's
yeah,
a risk moment.
Yeah, they got bought by a
yeah,
Tiny Build, I believe.
right. But it shouldn't have been something that was bought to disband or dismantle. What do they call those when you buy out a company just to dismantle it?
Yeah, I don't think it was being sold for parts. I mean, it's just that when you're bought, then there's like the DNA is tested for quality of match at that point, right? And sometimes things go in unexpected directions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, but you think they would have done their due diligence before the buying for some of that, and maybe they did, and maybe they knew that was going to happen. But as far as I know, those people didn't relocate to Tiny Build, so it wasn't an ACU, not an ACU hire, well, whatever. So they weren't bringing in people. I don't know. There's got to be things that us mortals don't know about, because the decision was made in the best interests of someone.
Yeah, and I have high confidence that this wasn't the plan. It's just things didn't work out.
And then, we saw what happened with Baldur's Gate 3. We knew the studio was capable of producing gold, but I don't think, had any clue how good this goose was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, that must have brought a ton of new money into the industry, a ton of new sales, a ton of new everything. And we were looking at it like this was going to change the industry, and in 6 short months, we came into Christmas kind of depressed. So we've had our ups, we've had our downs, and I think that's a lot like every year. And I know I'm talking long, and I'll drop it in a minute. I thought that this year was worse than it actually was, and then I started looking at the bangers that came out this year. Just hit after hit after hit. Stuff like Dredge, stuff like Dave the Diver, stuff like just some really unique games, The Pale Beyond, narrative games that are getting a chance to shine. Platformers that are doing new things, people that are taking risks. So if the industry is so healthy, why are so many people so upset?
And I think good points from both of you. And yeah, it's hard to say yay or nay about what's happening with the industry this year. To Seth's point, this, I went through, or right now as we're recording this, I'm going through for my best of list. I have 18 different categories of games I'm making videos for, and there are some really solid games that came out this year. And yeah, I have 4 or 5 visual novel or very narrative heavy games, and that's something that I would not have thought of, last year. And there's been some fantastic entries that have come out from either smaller studios, or it's easy to forget that Armored Core 6 came out this year. Tears of the Kingdom came out. We'll be ranting about the VGAs probably in the next 15 to 20 minutes, but there's been some phenomenal games. And then on the flip side, this has been a year where we've been hearing layoffs after layoffs. Me Games has decided to stop making titles. Let's see, Seth mentioned Versus Evil. And again, the rate this industry goes, we can all, I think a lot of us forgot about the whole Unity debacle that happened a few months ago. Unity just torched 10 years of goodwill, or 13 years of goodwill in the matter of minutes. And it's given Game Maker a huge shot in the arm. And to Seth's point about when we were talking about all the layoffs we've been hearing, something is not right. There's so many fantastic games, But it seems like every few weeks we're hearing of another studio closing, or hearing of mass layoffs. What was the other thing that happened? My mind is blanking on it, but we keep hearing about how there's so many issues when it comes to studios staying afloat. And I guess the point I was trying to make, like with Baldur's Gate 3, like again, I think Tomo and I were having this discussion a few years ago. I think right around time talking about like Divinity or RPGs. Like Larian has a pedigree in terms of RPG design. Like this is not their first rodeo in terms of making a game. And it's taken them like 23 years, maybe about 20 years or so to have this breakout hit. And I think I was joking with someone saying, like, in the next 6 to 12 months, like, I'm sure, like, every publisher is going to be thinking, oh, we can make a Baldur's Gate 3, we have a studio, let's just put out one just like it. And it's just not going to happen.
I don't think games like Baldur's Gate happen randomly.
Nope.
Mm-mm. Nope.
It's a very special moment when the stars align.
Well, it's also, in the case of Baldur's Gate, I don't think it's like things coming together as much as they were basically, even though they were building the pyramid in plain sight, nobody was looking until they said, "Hey, we've been building this pyramid forever. Hey, check it out." And they're like, "What are you talking? What is this? How? This is the best thing ever. Where did this come from?" And it's like, yeah, well, it's been right here, and we've been building it for like the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Some of your friends probably know about it, though.
I mean, it was literally right in our faces the entire time. And it was out a year beforehand.
It was in early access for a long time. And granted, it wasn't a lot of content, but its juicy goodness was totally there. At the same time, Divinity Original Sin 2 has been a basically best of class game and selling for kind of 8 years, maybe, right? When did that come out?
And I still haven't played it yet. It's still on the never-ending list of games I need to play. And what was it? And
I think playthrough.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tomo. You froze for like a split second there.
I did an entire playthrough.
Oh no!
It took the better part of a whole year to do it, a few hours a week, and it was one of the best multiplayer experiences I've ever had in my life.
I'm afraid you froze just as you said, like, this is the game I've been playing, and no one heard it.
Oh, playing it multiplayer with some non-game industry friends, and it was some of the best multiplayer I've ever done. And of course, Baldur's Gate 3 is just continuing that truth.
And we didn't hear the name of the game, though, unfortunately, because that's when you kind of cut out.
Original Sin 2, which was released in 2017.
Oof.
So really, 2017.
Oof. So, like, the one thing, like, about this point about, like, good or bad years I wanted to mention is that one of the things I think a lot of people, especially, like, just, like, the game or consumer side tend to forget is that the industry is always kind of, like, a year or two, like, behind because of how long it takes game development to go. So, when we're talking about the success of 2023, we could be really talking about the successes of 2021 to 2022. So, most likely, the things that we've been seeing this year will probably not, at least on the consumer side, will probably not be felt until maybe 2024, maybe 2025. And that, I think, again, it's so easy for people to, like, memory hole how, like, the industry can, like, change, like, 6 months to a year out. And I'm sure there'll be discussions next year about people saying, well, why aren't there any new games? Why aren't we enjoying this? Where's the next dredge? Why can't we have why can't we have yearly Baldur's Gate 3s? For every RPG designer watching this right now, they just had a heart attack with that sentence.
What was it that came out right at the same time as Baldur's Gate 3 that was kind of like a complete mess? I guess that would Starfield.
Yeah, but it's not fair to call it a complete mess. I think it's...
Miss?
I mean, is it a complete miss? I think the people that enjoyed those games really enjoyed Starfield, and I think that it's just that some of its thunder was stolen.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like, oh yeah, we have this huge, loud, raging party, and then just something louder and bigger was next door.
which in a very ironic twist happened a few years ago with the Outer Worlds and I think Disco Elysium. That everyone thought the Outer Worlds was going to be like the hot new RPG that year, and then this weird European choose your own adventure RPG came out of nowhere and took over.
We need another Disco Elysium.
Mm-hmm. We also need
That
a few
would be
more
nice.
Celeste as well.
Are they making another game like that, or are they going to try to make an ambitious leap? Because I mean, it itself is sort of an ambitious leap, and then I kind of mean it makes me feel like the people who made it are about ambitious leaps, but making an ambitious leap on top of that ambitious leap sounds like a
There's
fine way to have a dramatic story that could end a number of ways.
Well, there is a lot of drama behind the
Yeah.
studio, so I don't know if we'll see anything come to light about that. The IP is in various states of legal pressure, one way or another, and
Mm-hmm.
That is too
people
bad.
are throwing insults, and people are in insane asylums. It's crazy.
Well, not to diminish the difficulties they're going through, but they made such a good game. There's plenty of us that are inspired because of it. So, I mean, it'll be
Yeah.
influencing the choices I'll be making for many, many, many years to come.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, like to like the point about like Starfield, I was reading some people talking about it on Twitter the other night, and I think like this has been something that has been kind of like bubbling over. I think regarding Bethesda over like the last decade, that a lot of the industry has really, I think, caught up, and maybe even has lapped Bethesda in terms of their open world structure and their design. I mean, for like the three of us and for the audience watching this, like we are pretty dialed into indie games right now. I mean, again, I've been playing more indie games over the past like 5 to 7 years. I think I've covered more AAA games. So the amount of work and the amount of uniqueness that's coming from that space has really blown up. And like for Bethesda, like it's still interesting to see like I guess like where they can go in terms of trying to like reestablish themselves or maybe even create like a new market for themselves. Because again, like with Starfield, 4 or 5 years ago, people were foaming at the mouth just simply at the mention. I think this was like at E3 or one of the Game Awards, like, hey, we're working on Starfield. Here's just a screen of stars. And everyone, freaked out at the awards. And then we fast forward today, and a lot of people have just, well, it's like, yeah, it came out, and then nothing.
Well, that's the thing is I think it did well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that the hype was because hype has limited bandwidth, right?
Mm-hmm.
In any given moment. So if someone is sufficiently loud, then even a very loud thing can't be heard. But the people that were into buying it definitely bought, and I think it did well. Let's what was its I wonder what its initial sales figures were. Yeah, but I mean, if you're talking about if it made money, I think you're going to find lots of very positive things about the things. Best-selling game of September, made Microsoft a ton of money. 7th best-selling game of 2023 year to date.
And it's
I mean,
sitting
I'm sure it
at
made a lot of money.
it's sitting at mostly negative and mixed right now on Steam, so I'm not sure what is going on there.
Crap, that is not cool.
Mm.
I mean, what's interesting is, you were talking about when it got announced, and it's like I was definitely like, I don't know if I could have been more excited about sort of like Skyrim plus but in space when it got announced. And then by the time it came out, it just the prospect of doing more Skyrim was only just good. Right? It wasn't like it wasn't like it didn't like reach into my soul and grip me the same way it did when it was announced because things had fundamentally changed since then.
I'm starting to wonder if my going back to the old trope of expectation mismatch every time I see something like this is it's just a trope at this point. People are not going. It's just gonna. People aren't going to have their expectations managed because they're gonna think that it's something that it's not, regardless. When you're looking at games as big as this, I mean, if they announce Morrowind 6, people are going to be expecting it to do anything, even though it's going to be an idle game. It could be anything. And people are going to be like, "Oh, it's going to be this, it's going to be that," and it's like, no, we decided to set out and make Morrowind or Skyrim 6 an idle game and clicker base. And they're going to be like, "Oh, but it's going to be this." No, no, no. We're telling you what it's going to be.
Dude, if they just remade all of those games as idle games, I would love it. I mean, it's probably a bad call because I think the more rabid fan base would probably see that as some strange betrayal of some sort, but I'd love that.
Well, every RPG is secretly a incremental, so
No, totally,
close
totally.
enough.
And if engineered properly, could easily be adapted to autoplay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we only had like about 30 minutes or so for this recording. We should totally do the what is a JRPG discussion that blew
Okay.
up on Twitter. We can wrap that up in 30 minutes.
But yeah, no, I do think that these big examples though do represent kind of one of the themes of the year, right? And that was that the hype for this year kind of came in waves, and
Yeah.
I have a feeling that if that hype was spaced out, that there would have been even more winners, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and again, like just like with every other year of this industry, it still felt like we had like those like peaks and valleys when it came to some of the successes. Like I am still like on one hand, I'm really surprised that like Pizza Tower even got mentioned at the Video Game Awards. I'm not so happy that it didn't win anything. And then like on the complete opposite of the spectrum, we had Alan Wake 2 come out that just surprised everyone. As we're recording this, I literally finished the game last night, like another like binge session this week. And it is such like a unique game. And again, like it's like almost like 13 years in the making for Remedy. And that's again one of those things that we oftentimes tend to forget. Like the games that like resonate so much, they take a lot of time and effort to actually coalesce. Like it's never a case of, hey, I'm just going to work on this game for 6 months, and boom, we have a new Celeste or a new Disco Elysium.
I think that's why when you see something like a breakout like Baldur's Gate 3 or Disco Elysium with a small manageable team, a decent budget that's not, size of Star Citizen, producing these great games, it's so remarkable because, you look at some of the overfunded development teams and overpopulated development teams, and they can't put out a C-rated game. They're lucky if they get a 70 in their games, and these smaller, more agile teams are just producing or outproducing them. And I think that's something we have to consider is, double A in a lot of cases is surpassing where triple A could be. And I know I'm making up terms. Is there really a double A out there? I mean, we kind of like, it's kind of like triple A is kind of like a baseball term, but whatever. But I see that in the strategy market
term.
where Paradox is being lapped by, say, Hooded Horse in a lot of ways.
Well, I think that this is a roundtable topic that's really worthy to have a discussion. Is why is it that the expensive games cost so much, and why is it that sometimes they can be outmaneuvered by someone who spends much, much, much less? Average budgets, why the biggest winners sometimes aren't the biggest spenders. That's a roundtable topic that will get all kinds of answers, and I guarantee you we won't all agree. We should convince Tony to get on that one.
Oh, yeah, I'm for that.
But yeah, no, I think it's a great point, and I think it's never been more sort of asymmetrical or anything potentially goes. Still, massive budgets do increase predictability, because for all of those small studios that make a great game that's better than the expensive version of that game, there are hundreds of total failures along the way, maybe thousands, right? Maybe thousands. It's like 1 to 1,000 to get those results. And obviously you can't, the world actually, we will run out of the world's wealth if we go 1 to 1,000 on some of the bigger budget games.
Mm-hmm. Yep. One of my favorite games of this year was Final Profit. It's an RPG shop sim game that was made in RPG Maker. Like, I can tell you that the developer of that probably spent a less amount of money than Larian did to make Baldur's Gate 3 or Bethesda for Starfield. And yeah, again, like the point about why putting more money in doesn't necessarily equal, more review scores or better review scores. Again, we can that and the RPG topic. I think that may be our resolution for 2024 to get to those topics in a roundtable. I do want to get to the VGAs. I'm trying to think if there's anything else in terms of big trends. I guess before we talk about the VGAs, and again, as a time check, we have about 28 minutes to go.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I have 28 minutes left.
What do you guys have any predictions or any thoughts about what we will be seeing in 2024? Give like those hot takes that I'm sure will all be proven wrong in about 3 months from now.
So, I think my predictions are going to sound pretty mundane. I think what we'll see is that the spike in layoffs from this year will be at least I don't okay, I'll go so far. I'll make it a bolder claim than I actually believe. Will be mostly reversed. Or if not, I'll just say completely reversed, even though I don't 100% believe that. Completely reversed, because part of what I think is the reason behind these layoffs was a um, a sort of a capitalistic response to the increase in interest rates. And at the larger companies, they're kind of like forecasting a kind of a risk averse forecasting. Well, if things keep going this way, we're just going to have to lay people off. So we might as well do it before rather than later kind of mentality. And so I think that's what, at least the large companies and their layoffs, I think is largely connected to that kind of financial pressure, which is, I think, mostly psychological. Because I think that they're even, declaring that they're going to be reducing those interest rates in the near, soon enough. Um, so I think that the kind of employment and sort of community of developers perspective, the downside of this year will be reversed. And then in terms of just games and what do the big games of this year mean for the big games of next year, I think it means hardly nothing other than the trends that we've been seeing for year after year after year, which is kind of a continued kind of development of excellence in the storytelling of all genres. Obviously, an increase in the number of and the quality of the kind of more fundamentally focused on narrative games. I think that those games, as we're seeing this year, is a great year for those games, but I think it's also just a trend that designers in our industry are getting more adept at aligning novel mechanics with the goals of the story and ever more clever ways to express that stuff. We're just seeing that happen over and over again. And so obviously those people, one, are learning because they're continuing to practice, and then they're learning from each other, or I'm learning from them, maybe is one way of putting it too. Um, and so I think the predictions for next year are a strong a strong slate of games, better, an improvement in those games, some unexpected high points that is, if you look carefully, are like the genetic descendants of a few other awesome games, and what will feel like a great rally for the industry in terms of its personnel.
I don't think Star Citizen's going to come out this year or next year. That's my big prediction. I'm playing it safe.
Playing it
I
smart.
think there's going to be yes. I don't think. Well, I do think that there's going to be a downward pressure placed into the medium-sized, more independent game teams, getting some people that were pushed out of larger companies during some of these mass closures. And I think that's going to enable some of these medium-sized or even small-sized companies to bolster what they're able to produce based on the amount of cash that they can outlay, so that you're going to see an overall increase in what the indie developers are able to accomplish on their own in 24 specifically.
I think for me, we're going to, I think to what Seth said, one, I don't think Star Citizen's going to come out either. But I also think that we are going to see like another kind of uptick in indie studios and indie dev. I'm hoping we don't see another 60 more Bullet Heavens come out in the next 6 to 7 months. But I think we are still going to be seeing a lot more innovation from the indie space. I just hope that we can kind of, I guess, like, again, like, try to equalize the coverage. So it's not just, like, one game blowing up. Like, this year in 2023, Fear and Hunger 2 got, like, a huge shot in the arm. And, like, everyone, at least from the streamer or YouTuber side, couldn't stop talking about, which is fantastic. But I'd rather not see, like, just, like, one game kind of, like, soak up all the attention. But I just don't know if that will ever happen, considering, you know, how people worship the YouTube and the Twitch algorithms.
I mean, is that even what happened this time, though? Right? I think that there was basically a month where BG drowned out everything around it, but that was it. I think other than that, there was sort of like there was a lot of excitement about a lot of games. And even still, right, we're just fractured enough. Like, I know the odd person that didn't know what BG3 was still.
All right. So
well, the interesting part is BG3 didn't really do a lot in the streaming department in comparison to, say, what Fortnite's done over the years. I wouldn't be caught dead playing Fortnite. So what do these streamers know?
Well, you know, because I don't like Fortnite, I'm pretty sure that it's like this really bad game that nobody likes.
Exactly.
We still need to have our anti-Fortnite discussion as well at some point.
So many things have changed in Fortnite that I don't know if I can have that discussion now without doing research.
Another roundtable discussion worth having is games that are around for more than 5 years. Maybe we can even say more than 10 years. They have to redefine themselves every now and then. They have to change what they are fundamentally. And like an example would be like back in the good old days, World of Warcraft basically turned into a new game with every expansion. Like all the towns would change, all the freaking buttons you would push would change, the classes are changing. And some people would hate it because it's like, well, this game that I'm comfortable with is all different. But that's absolutely a part of its success story. It's like the way you keep people from not losing their minds after a decade of playing the same game is it just not the same game.
Mm-hmm. And someday I would still love to interview someone at Digital Extremes for Warframe, because I think there's so much about how them keeping that game going for. I think we're going to be hitting a decade. I think this year or next. No, I think 2024 will be their 10-year anniversary.
Yes, it is. And although I never bought a Founders Pack, so I don't have a Leto Prime or a Skana Prime or a Excalibur Prime, but I've been playing ever since. I think it is unique on this planet as the most intense and most numerous number of progression threads in a game, where those progression threads affect the gameplay of the experience. I don't think you have anything that's even close. Not even within a single order of magnitude. Maybe some within two.
Mm-hmm. All right. So
by the way, will you be upset if you bring someone on from DE and then, like, while we're on the call, I beg them for platinum? Would that be a problem?
Nah. That is all right. Maybe they'll do like a giveaway while we're having the roundtable, just like throw out codes.
That's right.
That awkward, sucky thing that, like, the person who's, like, a part of the event is trying to block other people so that they can get rewards.
Mm-hmm. All right. So for the final part of our discussion, again, all these topics could be like 2 to 3 hour talks. So I'm trying to keep things I'm trying to keep us at least somewhat on time here. But let us, of course, talk about the other major thing that happened very recent, and that is the Video Game Awards. The show that had no controversies, or it really did represent all the game industry. And I'm going to throw that little, I guess, like hook out to either one of you to kind of run with it.
Well, they want to distance themselves away from the decisions as much as possible. So there's this body of 100 different media outlets that supposedly make all the decisions. But how do we know that those media outlets are not influenced? And that's really the question that I have. Because they're the usual suspects that you would expect to see in a list of media outlets in the gaming industry. They're just, some of them are in America, some of them are in Brazil. They're scattered all over the place. But I don't think there's anything to say that some of these are not influenced in one way or another, and their votes are in question. It's just the way the world is at this point. And yes, I'm carrying my flag right at the beginning of this. I'm not going to mince words. I think it's a PR event. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with video game awards. This is public relations.
Well, I think that it's probably fair to say that in the context of their perspective, that it's a merit-based selection of some sort. But I guess my only counter to what you're saying is, when isn't an award show just a promotional vehicle? Um,
I don't think it is ever.
I think that as a as a as a consumer, it has the look of being a sort of like almost scientifically handled kind of comparative retrospective of games from a period of time and trying to identify the best. It's like an Olympics of some sort, maybe, right? But um, I don't think any of them really are, and I don't think any of them really are trying to be. I mean, I think that they like to have that sheen, that's the truth about them, because it helps them in their relationship with the public. But I think under the hood, I think all the developers or the people in the know and the people who make the decisions and the people who run the show, it's it's sort of like reality TV, right? It's how do we make the best show out of this? Um, is it, first of all, like, I'm not, maybe I've never been in a room like this, but I could imagine people in a room going, the game that wins, it would be best if it was seen as an underdog. It would be better, how do we turn this award show into a dramatic entertainment piece? And the more it becomes that, sort of the better entertainment it is atomically as its own show. And then additionally, as a promotional vehicle, it's better for the ones who won and better for the ones who lost.
Mm.
The only people who are out of luck are the ones who have no exposure whatsoever.
The big issue or the big problem that people were pointing out was Dave the Diver is not a indie game at all. And we saw that, in years to come, or the years previous, when discussing Devolver, people were like, Devolver's not an indie game company. So, I mean, and if you look at what the Game Awards website itself says about what an indie game is, it's not Devolver or Dave the Diver. It's something completely different. So there's a mismatch of expectations again of what people are thinking is an indie company and what they're thinking is an indie company. So there needs to be some sort of definitions applied here that apply to everybody. There needs to be some tightening up, I feel, and I don't think the Game Awards is willing to accept that it needs to make any changes.
Well, I mean, if the audience had a lot of pressure to give, then they totally change.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the same time, maybe we're just okay that this promotional vehicle that's supposed to be entertainment is just exactly what it is.
Right.
I think that there is room, like, how Metacritic for a period was like sort of an interesting measure. It started to become an interesting measure of quality. I mean, IMDb might have almost had that effect for a brief period of time, but we've kind of lost our love for these rating sites, I think. But that doesn't mean we've lost our love for rating things. If someone could come in and have like if an independent group could do better than Steam reviews, then I think people would like that.
Well, some of us nasal gazing game review folks and critics, our idea of a good game does not necessarily match the public perception. I mean, the same thing like looking at like someone like Gene Siskel or Roger Ebert's reviews.
Exactly, for
They were
sure.
often out there, and it's like, what are you even thinking? This is not the public perception. So I think there's always going to be issues.
Again, like if any like angel investors want to invest in my award show, we can bump that up for next year. Definitely reach out. We can have like whole musical numbers. I can have all the sponsors. We can have 30 minutes of ads before each one of my reviews. I'm right here, people. I'm ready.
Well, I mean, if you want, I think my off the cuff first set of approaches to getting funding for something like this would be machine learning, audience segmentation, and then or audience segmentation. I think is the key piece. Is that how would you identify yourself? And then, like, imagine there was a questionnaire, or just we just somehow magically knew. And then once we know, like, kind of what demographic you sit in, then all the reviews change. And then, how do you create all that content? With some kind of like clever approach to splitting between the basis of our machine learning tools that we're learning now, combined with sort of like influencer slash kind of like super nerd for various genres and kinds of games, and you kind of like splice those together, and then you try to make a sales pitch to get a bunch of, I guess in my case, Silicon Beach money.
What could be?
No, with the VGAs, like one thing that I was still not a fan, and this was a valid criticism that everyone was talking about, was like it definitely downplayed, I think, the actual act of playing video games or designing them this year, as everyone got like rushed off the stage. Like the two like favorite moments of the show for me was the lady who worked at Tango Gameworks, who came out, who was announcing her new game, was always like so bubbly and excited about it, and of course the Alan Wake 2 musical number. Like those are some really great moments. I didn't care about seeing a Matthew McConaughey come out to promote. I forget what he promoted. Like I think it was he's working on he's in a video game. I think, right. I completely forgot what he was there for.
Well, we didn't have anything controversial this year either, with like someone rushing the stage. Or, we had Matan last year, and he just turned out to be someone who was going to try to be an influencer, and it was much less of an issue that people were thinking that it was going to be. But so no one wanted to crash it this year.
What happened last year? There was a crashing of some sort?
Yeah, that kid who ran up on the stage at the end, like when they were giving like the acceptance speech for Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Funny, very funny, nice.
He just turned out to be like a podcaster, or that's what he really went into, is just doing podcast stuff and
it was
insulting only fangirls.
A promotional stunt.
Yeah.
At a promotional vehicle.
At a promotional event. What more? I mean, it'd be nice if there was a real award ceremony that was industry based instead of, like where other game companies chose who the winners were. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what we're kind of talking about is sort of there would need to be some sort of technological part of the solution, right? A theory on how you're going to define quality or performance or merit that is better than just a random bunch of people that aren't regulated and them making a choice. Something where you at least as sophisticated as someone trying to explain the Netflix algorithm for promoting what you'd like. Now I mean, imagine if you had like a and get weird with it. We're in the future already, right? So imagine like it's like it's the exact same show. It's all simultaneous, but you select your demographic, and the entire show differs depending on what you chose. And who's in first place is different. Who wins the same categories differs depending on how you've kind of self-identified. Let's make the fact that the internet can show people different realities work for us instead of destroy us.
And we have like 40 different versions of RPG. Yes.
Yeah, totally. It's like, oh, I like RPGs, says the person. It's like, okay, there are 3 other questions you're gonna have to answer. And one of them can be, in your definition of JRPG, would you say that?
I would like, if we have one other prediction, I would like for the VGAs for 2024, I want Martin Scorsese's to give the best JRPG award.
Nice.
I like him
hilarious.
on stage for that.
In 5,000 words or less, what is your experiences with permadeath, and how did you feel after?
That's a good one. That is a good one.
But yeah, to the point earlier about like the mainstream perception of the show and like what it really means, like I've been like getting like in all my feeds like rage views of people like why didn't Spider-Man 2 win, or why didn't Tears of the Kingdom win? And it's still like very shocking sometimes to me about like how like closed off some people are to like the greater market when it comes to the video games.
If I didn't play BG3, it's impossible that it could have beat those other games.
I didn't play BG3, but I knew it was going to win as soon as I saw like, all the 10 out of 10s come in.
Well, and it's because it's an extraordinary game, and what's extraordinary about it is very difficult to sort of feel. I had, over the course of this year, I think one thing that's worth noting is I had tons of conversations with other game developers about BG3 and why they should play it. They're like, they're like, is it any good? I mean, I hear everyone talking about it. And then they're sitting there playing freaking Diablo 4 or something. And I'm like, whoa, yeah, you have no idea, is how I start that conversation.
Yep, and oh man,
here is something with actual game mechanics.
And it's somehow a custom story, somehow a story that changes for depending on the characters you bring. It's a story it's a world that's also a sandbox. I mean, it's crazy what they were able to bring together. And yeah, there's some uncanny valley. Oh well.
But I'm sure like every studio can make their own by 6 months from now. I'm sure we'll see like 3 more Baldur's Gate 3 size RPGs, because it is just that simple to copy them. Just hit a Control-C, Control-V, and you got it.
When honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if some players will see some games and feel like that's what happened. Like, let's say, to them, what was really BG3 were those high fidelity character graphics and sort of like the cutscenes and stuff. Maybe for others, it's like they go, oh, BG3 is just the same as Magicka, because you can keep combining elements to your heart's content. But yeah, it's a lot more than both those things.
Oh, and speaking about Blizzard for a second, it was announced, I think, last week that Bobby Kotick is finally being stepping down from Activision Blizzard. So,
ding dong, the witch is dead.
Who knows what's going to happen with Diablo 4 in the coming year?
Oh, I don't think nothing. There'll be no changes. I don't think Bobby Kotick had a significant impact on the creative choices at Blizzard forever, actually. I think maybe the culture of Activision started to induce certain changes kind of at sort of like the organizational level and maybe sort of like in team resource levels, but none of the specific design choices. Although I'll tell you something that will have an effect, being under the umbrella of Microsoft. And people have a lot to say about that, and some people don't think it'll be good. I mean, I personally think it'll generally be pretty positive, because I think Microsoft kind of has gotten good at supporting the identity of the things that they acquire.
Mm.
Because it doesn't have like an aspiration to take over things, you know? I mean, not anymore, maybe is a better way of putting it.
Hmm.
You know, it is more kind of like um, a weird alien mothership that really earnestly wants to win, right? And so winning doesn't mean turning the other winning thing into you.
We definitely don't have the time to talk about it now, but another topic I think could be interesting to discuss is about the whole Games Pass, that kind of model, because I still hear developers who say that it's still like not the best way to sell games. It's beautiful for consumers. I mean, anyone who has, XBLA or Games Pass or whatever the Sony version of it, they're getting lots and lots of games. But is that really helping like the studios out or the developers out who get on there?
Game Pass obviously works really, really well for some people. I mean, some developers, right? They benefit quite a bit from that. Um, but I mean, it's like anything though. It's really successful for its market, and for the people that have who kind of enjoy that. And then over time, because of that degree of success with that specific set of people, it'll become disadvantageous if you don't fit that mold.
Hmm.
And of course, then you probably shouldn't be on that platform in that case.
All right. I know we are knocking at time right now. So, I guess final question for both of you. Do you have any like game of the year like that you would like to mention to the audience watching? For me, my game of the year will be the video, so I can't spoil those just yet. But I any games from either one of you or both of you that you really enjoyed this year?
I think the breakout indie that I saw was a little turn-based ditty called Dot Age, which basically takes the formula of a city builder type game and turns it into a turn-based game, similar that you would see like in a Euro placement, Euro worker placement style board game. Um, I think this surprised my expectations by a few miles. It is not going to be my game of the year, but it is certainly in the top 10.
I just put it on. I just put it in the. I just put it in the cart, the basket. That's a great sales pitch for it.
Yeah, the worker placement.
And for you, Tomo?
Just BG3. I mean, and I've been waiting for it. I actually started getting worried because it was in early access so long, and I wasn't. You couldn't see in the build certain things that were progressing. I was getting worried about the way they were going to handle sort of later level characters and multi-classing, and so I got really worried. And then when it came out, it was just this huge relief, and it was just so darn good. And then of course I'm playing in multiplayer with friends, and so I got to take it slow. So I didn't I didn't basically I had no hangover. I haven't had a hangover from BG3 yet. I didn't eat myself sick from it. So I think I may have had the most ideal conditions to experience it, and it was just it's exactly what I wanted, and I was really happy it turned out. That said, I have a sales pitch for a game called Solasta, which is a much lower rent, sort of
Mm.
finicky, but multiplayer remake of Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. And it's great. It has really good mod support. So you have all these people making content for it. So while I was waiting for BG3 to come out for those couple of years, I played a lot of Solasta and got my fill of Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition rules that way.
All right. And again, for me, if you want to know what my favorite games of this year, go watch all the videos that are going to be going up over the next like 17 to 18 days of coverage from me. But I know, Tomo, you have to get going. I still have a book to write. So, to wrap up for our final table for 2024, anything else you guys want to promote, mention, whatever. So, go right ahead.
So We have a game called Epic Tavern on Steam Early Access. It's been there for a very, very long time, but it is a game all about disassembling the idea of storytelling and player-authored experience in the context of a fantasy tavern, where the people you serve are the would-be heroes of the land. And I have a question, by the way, for Seth. You were talking about a war game that you were talking about at the very beginning of the stream, and I forgot the name of it. So when you give your plug, would you also tell me that war game?
So the game you're thinking of is Burden of Command, which I'm kind of involved in the testing team on there, and we'll see where that goes. It's got some great stuff going behind it, and looking at storytelling, and it's not necessarily, it's more of an RPG than it is a war game, although it's more of a war game than an RPG. And we'll let you figure that out and balance. But it's the psychological aspects of war is what it's trying to distill down, and being a leader and what that takes. Band of Brothers is kind of like the elevator pitch for it. And it's a darn good elevator pitch for anything if you mention Band of Brothers. But, I've got the Strategy Informer project, and we're trucking along with that. Things are moving in good directions all across that. I posted my top 10 games for the year to Twitter, and Baldur's Gate 3 is not in there. And it's not in there because I didn't think it was a phenomenal game. It's because that's not normally what I kind of cover, and it's a little bit large. So, my idea of a good RPG was a little bit different. Anyway, that doesn't mean you shouldn't take a look at it. And you can find me, if you Google the Strategy Informer, you'll find a lot of stuff. We're out there.
Mm-hmm. And I can tell everyone watching, as a bit of a spoiler, that Baldur's Gate 3 will probably not be on my Game of the Year list either. And neither will Tears of the Kingdom or Spider-Man 2. But I will have a lot of games that probably most of you watching have never heard of. So be sure to look forward for that. Again, you'll find links to all Tomo stuff, Seth stuff, and my stuff down below. Do the YouTubing stuff, buy all the copies of my book, join the Discord, and you can give us suggestions and ramp out our takes for 2023. But I know we have to get going, so gentlemen, it was great hanging out with you tonight. Have a great rest of your holiday and a great new year, and we will see about getting some more roundtables set up for 2024.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Happy New Year.
Alright, with that, everyone, for those of you watching, thank you for tuning in. Come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. Have a great new year as well, and we will see you in 2024.